productivity, winning strategies, and aligning employer-employee goals. If this sounds like something your business could use more of, then you've come to the right place. The Business Mechanic Show with your host, Vaughn Sigmund. Let Vaughn show you how to develop, improve, and jumpstart your business. So now, please welcome the host of The Business Mechanic, Vaughn Sigmund.
Welcome to the Business Mechanic Show. This is your host, Vaughn Sigmund, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. Our topic for this episode has clearly struck a chord with many of you. Just last week, our podcast and the free tool we offered set an all-time record for the largest one-week download in the history of the show. Wow. Shows there's a lot of hunger for this out there, and I'm just blown away by this response. And the free download I offered of my critical thinking cheat sheet, it's been downloaded hundreds of times in the past week. So a massive thank you to all for your incredible support. And the cheat sheet will once again be included on the show notes of this podcast. If you want it, download it. I think a lot of people are finding some value out of it, but certainly your enthusiasm tells me that you are a very dedicated audience and you're hungry for more insights on the pivotal leadership skill of critical thinking. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. Our episode today is titled Lessons in Critical Thinking from Corporate Triumphs and Tragedies. From there, we'll be delving deep into the realm of critical thinking, exploring some real-world examples from various companies and analyzing the success and failures of their leadership, all rooted in their critical thinking abilities, or lack thereof. Once we're through with each story, we're going to do a post-mortem to help you fully unpack what they did or didn't do and determine the critical thinking lessons to be learned from each. So strap in, get comfortable, and let's dive into the real world of critical thinking. Let's get after it. Let me do this in the beginning. For those who haven't listened to the other show, please do. The show previous to this. Let's now define critical thinking. At its core, critical thinking is the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue. An objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a good judgment. It's not just about gathering information, but about understanding and interpreting that information in various contexts. And those various contexts, or the elements of critical thinking, which is all on the cheat sheet, are who, what, where, why, when, how. It's a very disciplined process. Most people don't think about it like that, but you are listening to this show because you want to get more information and understand that this is growth for you. And I'm happy, more than happy, to provide you with some lessons, some thoughts for you to start honing out your skills and making better decisions in business. It's a very disciplined process. It takes time. It takes practice. I don't promise anybody you're going to stop making mistakes. You're not. You're still going to make mistakes, but you're going to make far less of them as you develop this skill set. You need to actively and skillfully, and that comes in time, conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating all the information. And it is about information and what you do with it. And that information comes from observations, experience, reflection, reasoning, communication, collaboration. It's very much about being an active learner. That's right, a learner. Making a decision starts with what you learn, then how you process it, and then make a decision. So if you go into having to make a decision, understand you need to learn first. Don't make snap decisions. Be an active learner rather than a passive recipient of information. Great critical thinkers rigorously question ideas and assumptions and the stories they are told rather than just accepting them at face value. One of the things that's included in my difficult conversations course and in the book, which is free on Amazon, go get it, is that you need to go into every conversation understanding you don't know everything. You've got to get all the information you can to make a solid decision and have a great conversation from that. Same thing with critical thinking. You need to always approach it with an open mind and be a recipient of information by asking questions, open-ended questions, who, what, where, when, how, why. That's how you get there. You will need to always seek to determine whether the ideas, the arguments, the situation, the findings, you need to make sure that represents the entire picture. And you, as a decision maker, a good decision maker, must always be open to finding that they do not tell the whole story. It does not give you the entire picture. Often it doesn't. And that's where many bad decisions come from, is making a decision too quickly without asking. Let me go a little deeper into who, what, where, when, why, and how of critical thinking. Who? Let me just give you some examples around who. Imagine a hiring manager faced with two candidates. One has a stellar resume, but just didn't perform very well in the interview. While the second candidate has a much more modest resume, a lot less experience, but during the interview, they showcased very impressive problem-solving skills, communication skills. They were very optimistic. They came across as really sharp. A good critical thinker would weigh those two people and would consider who would be the best fit for the role, how they would impact the rest of the organization, who's going to be the best fit for the role, who's going to fit you from a leadership style, who's going to fit the team members they're going to be working with, who am I going to be able to grow with. And just because they have experience doesn't always mean that they're going to be the best candidate. So a critical thinker would consider all those things, take a very comprehensive evaluation of both these candidates and not just their on paper qualifications. Do not get biased by just the paper. You need all the information. And it's that human element that will almost always be the better candidate. Almost, I have to put that qualifier in there. So that's who. Let's take a what example. A consumer is bombarded with advertisements about a new health drink. And this health drink promises numerous benefits. And instead of immediately believing the claims, they actually research those ingredients. The ingredients are in that drink. And what scientific studies say about those ingredients? Are they really safe? Do they really interact in the way that the product manufacturer claims? Do they interact with anything else, like another pharmaceutical that you're on? Could there be an impact there? So those are all the what kind of, as a very small example for critical thinking. Where? A student is writing a research paper and they find a lot of information online. In order to be great at critical thinking, It's going to involve them discerning where that information is coming from, ensuring the sources are credible. If it's on the internet, it must be true, which we know is the furthest thing from the truth. And they don't just accept the first piece of information found, that they dig deeper and deeper and start comparing different sources of information to make sure they get exactly the most precise and accurate information. When? Consider an investor. This is a good one. Consider an investor deciding when to buy or sell stocks. They wouldn't make a decision based solely on current market emotions. That's where a lot of mistakes are made. Instead, a savvy investor, using critical thinking, they'd analyze where historically it's been a good time to buy or sell. They'd also consider various economic indicators, what the future indicators are showing, and that individual company's performance. There's so many people out there looking for the quick hit, the gamble, the dopamine hit in buying a stock or selling a stock. And very often, good critical thinkers, they buy and they hold because they've looked at it over a long period of time. They've gathered lots of information. They've studied the prospectus on all these, and they understand there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but over time, it continues to grow. Do I want to be constantly chasing the rainbow? Why? Let's say a doctor is presented with a set of symptoms that don't quite fit any known condition. So instead of making a hasty diagnosis just to get you out of the exam room, the doctor considers why these symptoms might be occurring. And they'd start exploring all possible causes, all the underlying conditions. They go past the norm and get as much information as they can. They'd be learning more about that. They just wouldn't go to their common day in and day out diagnosis. Good doctor wouldn't just send you down the road either. They'd actually do some research. How? Let's take an engineer that's faced with technical problems that just don't have a straightforward solution. That engineer would then, in order to think critically about this situation, they'd want to approach that problem from all kinds of different angles. And they'd test various solutions. They wouldn't stick with just their bias or just their experience. No, this is outside of the playbook. And they'd start exploring all kinds of other possible solutions and then consider the implications of each of those outside the box ideas. They wouldn't just quit. They'd use their critical thinking to figure it out. May not be instant, may take some time. In each of these scenarios, and these are lightweight scenarios, but just to give you an example, the individual doesn't just accept the initial or easiest answer. They delve deeper. They ask questions and consider all the possibilities before arriving at a well-informed decision. And let me just also add from my own experience, this is a piece of knowledge and advice. If you have several choices of which to decide on, generally, the harder of the decision is the right decision. The easy decision is rarely the best decision. Not 100% of the time, but keep that in mind. Hard is usually right. Let's talk about, now that you're going down a deeper journey of improving your critical thinking skills, what are the benefits? What are the benefits you're going to get out of improving that skill set? They're very broad. because critical thinking promotes a clear thinking, better decision making, and much improved problem solving. And that's what we're in this for. That's when we're in leadership. We're not paid to live with problems. We're paid to overcome them, not ignore them, not kick them down the road. Solve the problem. Make the decision. Do something about it. And it has to include you removing biases. That's where most people get hung up in making inadequate decisions, is they're too hung up in their own biases. They are not willing to consider they don't know what they don't know. Go out and find out more. You need to see issues from multiple perspectives, even if it's unpleasant, because you're paid to overcome problems, not live with them. Now, it's not without challenges that the process of making a great decision requires effort. But again, it most importantly, an open mind. You have to be an active learner. And humility. Understand that you have to have the capacity to sometimes admit one's errors. And for many people who have a challenged self-esteem, that can be difficult. But it's that self-esteem that's going to hold you back. So the more you humble yourself and find out that when you humble yourself, people actually respect you more, because typically we're being a little self-centered, if you will, and that's a poor choice of words, but protective of yourself. You're doing that to protect the respect that you fear may be lost of others, that some others may have for you. They'll like you more and they'll respect you more if you humble yourself 100% of the time. You will not appear weaker. You will appear smarter and stronger, which is, that's the opposite ends of where most people think. But to be a good critical thinker and learn a lot, you have to be humble. Now, let's look at a couple case studies, and I love these. I'm going to share a couple, and I'm going to share my input of how this company, the first company, dropped the ball on critical thinking. We're going to do a postmortem on that. Sound like fun? Let's do it. This is a talent oversight example. This is where a lot of critical thinking goes out the window in making hiring decisions, and in this case, promotion decisions. This is a fictitious name, both for the company and the person, but it's a real scenario, real life scenario that I've experienced. So it's Julia, and how Julia missed getting a promotion at TechFlow Incorporated. And TechFlow, that's a up and coming, growing tech startup. It was starting to gain traction in the industry. They are very innovative, because this is a real company, just not named TechFlow. They're very innovative. Their products are great. They've secured a steady stream of clientele who are very supportive of this product. And the atmosphere in the office at this time, before this decision that I'm going to discuss was made, was always buzzy and exciting. There's lots of ambition and can-do optimism all around the office. And Julia, who was a very dedicated, successful project manager, she'd been with the company from its very inception. She was the third or fourth employee hired. Julia was the cheerleader of this group. She was the heart of the success. She made sure stuff got done, and got done right, and she made people happy in getting it done. She was just brimming with enthusiasm, great cheer and personality. But at the same time, she was known for her very meticulous approach to problem solving. Her ability to rally her team, whether it was in the first hour or the 11th hour, she had this great knack for successfully delivering even the most complex, no matter what got in the way, the most complex projects. Julia was a superstar. And as companies go, so did TechFlow. They were growing. They recognized they needed a new position created, a new senior executive role, vice president of project management. The need for somebody to more broadly manage projects became very evident. They needed this person. They need more project managers, and they needed somebody to manage them. The role would be overseeing multiple project managers and ensuring a seamless execution of all the company's initiatives. Now, given Julia's undeniable expertise and her history with the company, many within her team, including Julia herself, almost everybody assumed, including Julia, she'd be the natural choice. Why wouldn't we make Julia? Everybody loved Julia. Everybody respected Julia. Julia got stuff done. She had very deep technical proficiency. She knew the product. She had great business acumen. She had great leadership. She often mentored newer team members. She grew people within the organization. And she was, oh, this is something else great. Julia was really good at managing up. I remember this about her. She acted as a great intermediary between her team and the higher ups in the organization. She went to bat for them. Another great leadership perspective. However, the company's HR department, along with the top executives, they decided to go a different route because they believed that bringing in someone with big company experience would be much more beneficial. So they initiated an external recruiters process, and they hoped that from this recruiter, they find someone from the outside with a more established, larger tech company experience. And that person would bring in all kinds of new ideas and strategies. And along with this really extensive network, they bring us business. And a few months later, Michael, fictitious name again, he was a middle manager previously from a well-known tech company. And they appointed Michael the vice president of project manager. And he came with this unbelievable background. On paper, Michael, superstar. But he lacked, of course, the intimate knowledge of TechFlow's intricate projects. He also lacked understanding the culture. He lacked understanding the relationships that Julia had fostered over the years. And let me tell you, when Michael got on board, bringing in his big company bravado, it got rocky fast. Because with his larger corporate mindset, he really struggled, and I've seen this happen with other companies, he really struggled to adapt to the agile and entrepreneurial spirit of TechFlow. They just didn't have it dialed in like the big companies did, and they didn't have the layers of management that he could delegate to. And he wasn't used to the accountability a smaller company requires. In bigger companies, there's lots of nails that can get pounded down other than the boss. many decisions Michael made came across as out of touch, which led to multiple project delays. And because of his personality, a lot of increased friction amongst the teams. Julia, on the other hand, Julia, one of their best employees, a key catalyst of their success. How did she feel? Yeah, overlooked. She was demotivated. So they took one of their great assets, making this decision, and took the gold out of it. And the decision not only affected her morale, but because now Julia felt neglected, ignored, diminished, that also resonated with other employees who saw that, well, Julia worked harder than anybody around here, and the dedication she had and her hard work, and they're going to overlook her. Why would I be busting butt like that? She was the best. And guess what? As often happens, Julia, she received an offer from a competitor, and without thinking twice, gone. And when she left, she took with her all this invaluable institutional knowledge that TechFlow had paid for, by the way. So all that IP left, all that enthusiasm left, all that leadership skill, whoop, giant sucking sound. And it left a noticeable void in the company's project management division. And they've struggled to ever recover from that. As time went on, TechFlow grappled with declining team morale, increased turnover, missed project deadlines, which when you start doing all that, what comes along with it? Client dissatisfaction. And the top executives and this HR person realized that while Michael's resume, his paper attributes were super impressive, they had failed to consider the intrinsic value that Julia brought to the role, that depth of knowledge, not only about the product, but also the inner workings of the company. The employees lost this intermediary. They lost that rapport that Julia created with the team and with others. And since Julia had come up early, they also lost all the IP that Julia brought to the team around culture and mission, because she, at one point, was the poster child. She was really dug in. So TechFlow's oversight, the highlights of this poor oversight, they failed in recognizing and nurturing internal talent. And if anybody's ever worked with me, they know we're always talking about how we're going to develop your team. And they missed it. And it's a lesson I teach often. External hires can bring new perspectives, but often they fail to critically evaluate the potential of the existing employees. They don't understand the culture. They don't understand that this is how we do things around here, and they decide they want to change the culture, or they want to bring their old company's culture into this culture, and that doesn't always mix well. And when you start screwing around with those elements, demoralizing people, showing them that there's no future to your hard work, you're going to start losing talent. And along with your talent going out the door, their institutional knowledge, and your team cohesion starts fraying at the seams, become weaker. And in the realm of HR and people decision, always the lesson for this, and I'm going to go a little deeper into it, always take a holistic approach that values loyalty, company knowledge, consistent performance, and think about the who, what, when, where, how, and why before you make this kind of decision. A lot of companies have made this bad decision. Tech Flow was not the first. They won't be the last. But let's post-mortem this. They started out by failing to define criteria for this role. One of the fundamental aspects of critical thinking is setting clear criteria for decision-making. And their HR and their top executives overlooked defining what they truly wanted from this vice president. I always have my clients close their eyes and talk about the person they want, thinking about the best people in the organization as benchmarks for the person they want. The human, not the experience, should always be secondary. And had they emphasized how important this knowledge, the importance of company knowledge, team rapport, the cultural aspects of it, alongside with other qualifications, Julia would have emerged as an obvious candidate, but they didn't think about all of the criteria. They got sucked in to looking for one thing only. We want a big picture, a big company person. They got it, along with all the issues that went along with that. Second thing, the lack of perspective taking. Another facet of critical thinking involves considering multiple perspectives. See, they had a one think approach to this, singular mindset, determined to go to the outside. What that decision was made, nobody on the executive team questioned it. They didn't factor in all the perspectives of the project teams, especially those. They didn't think about, who's this going to affect? We bring in an outsider. Who's this going to affect? How is this going to affect them? Why is this going to affect them? And thinking about all the people that Julia worked with who would absolutely vouch for her competence and dedication over bringing a stranger in from the outside. Didn't take all that perspective in. They ignored past data. See, Julia had a consistent track record of delivering projects and mentoring team members. And they ignored this historical data in favor of a theoretical benefit of a big company experience. They blew it there. They didn't weigh pros and cons because there was no consideration. There's always value in fresh perspectives from the outside, absolutely. And external hires in the right situation, that may be the right thing to do. They can bring in really good ideas. But I've also found in my decades of career that very often they bring in risk. And if you don't consider all the factors, internal, external, the impact of this decision on especially your current team, those pros and cons can get you in trouble. They just didn't weigh the full advantage of Julia's intimate company knowledge versus the potential benefits of an outsider. They didn't think it through. And as I've said it many times throughout this narrative, they had confirmation bias. We all do it. It's human nature. Very evident today. But they very much had confirmation bias. Because once these decision makers had the idea and made the decision of hiring somebody externally, they were fixated on making that decision. And that sidelined any contradicting evidence. That just became white noise. And as they were going through the interviews, making the decision, they sought confirmation of the benefits of hiring someone. It was a very theoretical benefit, but they missed out on the benefit that was on the other side of that. They were overvaluing certain experiences over the skill set on the people side of things. Many companies think that big company people bring in big company success and they're going to be a really good fit. They'll come in and help straighten things out. Doesn't happen always. Each company, big or small, has a unique set of challenges. And their experience, unless you understand your internal challenges and the challenges bringing somebody from the outside is going to create, unless you're looking for that as part of your interviewing process. If you overlook that part of the interview, you're going to run the risk of taking things off track the way this company did with Michael. Always consider the impact of the morale and the ripple effect that creates. They also lack feedback mechanisms. One of the tools of critical thinking is the ability to seek and incorporate feedback. And had this company, TechFlow, had the mechanism to get feedback from various teams, collaborated, interview Julia, interview people who supported her, asked their opinion on promoting Julia, they might have made a better decision. But more importantly, it would have gained valuable insight into the influence that Julia had, and bringing somebody from the outside would. So that's the postmortem on TechFlow. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Here's a very positive example. One that I remember very clearly and was caught up in becoming a fan of this company. Dollar Shave Club, as you probably know, but in case you don't, they completely disrupted the razor market. And they did it with critical thinking, making really good decisions, using all the aspects of critical thinking I've shared about. At the time, the shaving world was dominated by some very established brands, Schick, Gillette, Wilkinson. And there's two guys, Michael Dubin and Mark Levine. They started looking critically at the razor industry. Old, established, done it the same way forever. And they recognized an opportunity. And that opportunity, why are razors so expensive? Because this was a few years ago, and I've been a Dollar Shave Club customer for probably 15 plus years. But I remember just going to the drugstore, the grocery store, and buying razors. And you've got to be kidding me. Why are these so expensive? $15, $20 for a set of razors to last me a month. Was there a real justification for these high prices? Or it was just because they could charge these prices because they had a monopoly on it? Michael and Mark asked. And these questions, coupled with their genuine curiosity, led them to create Dollar Shave Club. They identified an oversaturated market that was saturated with overpriced products. The Goliaths were getting away with it. And while brands like Gillette had been around for over a century, they always were boasting advanced technology, multi-blade, 6 blades, a lot of blades. They were very expensive. And Dubin and Levine, they assessed the situation, realized that while these big brands were investing heavily in marketing and pushing their latest innovations, many consumers just wanted a simple, effective, and affordable way to shave. We don't need all that. And a simple proposition needed to be marketed. And they took a very different route there. And they went to YouTube. They took a viral marketing approach, which is how I found Dollar Shave Club. At the time, it was probably one of the first viral videos I ever saw. And from their critical thinking about doing things differently and saving money, because they're all about saving money, it didn't just stop at the saving money for the product. It extended to their marketing strategy because they couldn't afford all the TV ads, the radio ads the big players had. They had to find a cheaper route and one that fit the brand. So instead of going the traditional advertising route, which of course would have cost a fortune, they created this quirky, low budget video starring Dubin himself. And it was hilarious. And the video, if you haven't seen it, was titled, "Our Blades Are Effing Great." But they filled in the whole world of effing. And it went viral pretty quickly. And both his humor, the simplicity of this, the cost effectiveness of this, the messaging of all this was really clear. He got his point across really well. Why pay more when you can get a great shave for less? And it resonated. And as the company continued to grow, they said, well, hold on. There's other products that primarily men use. Let's expand this brand. We got a good thing going. Let's leverage that. So let's not stop at razors. They recognized their target audience would appreciate a broader range of grooming products delivered right to your door. That's the best part. I didn't have to go anywhere for this. So they expanded into shave butter, aftershave, hair care, shower products. And things were going great. So great that $1 billion Unilever acquisition came along. The culmination of Dollar Shave Club's success, fueled by their critical thinking, solid business, came in 2016 when consumer goods giant Unilever acquired the company for a staggering $1 billion. And this wasn't just a testament to Dollar Shave Club's rapid growth, but also the power of questioning established norms and looking at industries with a fresh, critical perspective. The leader looked at, instead of us going in and creating a whole new value stream, product line, marketing approach that we know nothing about, let's just buy the biggest player in it. Save ourselves the time. Great critical decision. Save ourselves the time and the money. Let's just buy the brand that's making it work. So let's talk about the postmortem analysis of this. First thing they did was they had a precise problem identification. Very simple. Razor blades were too expensive. And shopping for them was inconvenient. At the time, even back then, they were locked up very often behind plastic. So I had to find somebody to come over and open the plastic shelf so I could get to my stupid razors. And so they identified a common problem with a big need, huge pain points, common pain points. And Dollar Shave Club set the stage for disrupting the business. Second thing they did, they evaluated the market dynamics. They recognized that there was a monopoly. There was a huge monopoly structure in the razor industry with just a handful of significant players marking up prices, making all they could. The margins were gigantic for these big companies. And by taking a real deep dive, taking critical analysis of the market dynamic, that enabled them to position their brand as a direct challenger, offering quality at a fraction of the cost. Just as good a product delivered to your door, less friction in the purchase. Why not? They also, as part of their critical thinking structure, they assess consumer behavior. They did some studies. Though they, as you read his book, they were fairly informal studies because they didn't have a lot of money to go do a bunch of formal studies. But they did understand the consumers were increasingly looking for convenience. This was just at the front edge of online ordering. It was hot enough that we could leverage that. And more importantly, this was the beauty of it. It was a subscription model. So not only was it super affordable, but it was about delivering the convenience. I don't even have to think about it. Every month I'm going to get my blades. Bing, bang, boom, easy. Right to my doorstep. They also, as part of their critical thinking, effectively used data. They took the data they could find to understand consumer preferences. They adjusted their marketing strategies. They refined their product offerings tight. With, I think at the time they had 3 offerings: the humble blade, the medium blade, and the 16 blade. Good, better, best, which is always the way to market your products, by the way, and services. And this data-driven approach allowed them to be very agile, very responsive. And when consumers' needs changed, they could easily change with it. Fifth, they had courage to challenge the status quo. Critical thinking often involves challenging prevailing assumptions instead of following the traditional advertising playbook. There was a better way to do it, which was their very humorous video. They had millions and millions of downloads and views. They also took a very forward-thinking supply chain management. They anticipated the growth because the one thing that could have killed them was being out of stock. So they needed to fulfill a significant number of orders and have the stock to do so. They created a very sharp supply chain management to make sure they could scale and maintain their brand promise of delivering you to door exactly what you need. They also had regular feedback loops. They regularly engaged feedback mechanisms, surveys. They understood their customers' needs, got their feedback, looked at the market so that they can continue to enhance their product and introduce new lines. Collaborative decision-making. They fostered a culture where team inputs were valued. Multiple perspectives from the design team to the distribution team were all considered when making decisions. That's the way a company, a real well-run scaling company runs, is collaboration. You're always going to make better decisions that way. Seeking the input and the knowledge of your team. They also anticipated some competitive responses because they knew when we get out there and the word spreads, competition is going to come around, and it's either going to be other startups or it's going to be from the established players. So their critical thinking foresaw this, and that meant that they needed to continuously innovate and expand product line. They needed to diversify the product line to stay on top of things, stay one step ahead of the competition because competition was keen. So conclusion, Dollar Shave Club, huge success story. It's a testament to the power of critical thinking and entrepreneurship. And their journey offers invaluable insights for startups and especially established businesses alike, underlying the importance of a deep critical evaluation every stage along the business cycle. So let's do a couple real world takeaways from these two stories. I'll go over these in fairly high level, but think about it. One, always embrace continuous learning. As soon as you know it all, you're going to begin failing. Both the failure story of the HR decision and the success story of Dollar Shave Club highlighted the importance of continuous learning. And while the HR tale serves as a cautionary reminder about the pitfalls of not updating one's knowledge base and considering other options, collaborating with people, and relying on dated practices. Dollar Shave Club exemplified the rewards of staying in tune with market shifts, customers' preferences, continuous feedback, looking to learn and grow and understand, adjust their strategies based on newest updated information. Number two, they had a value diverse perspective. One of the significant mistakes the HR story made was not seeking diverse input about making this crucial people decision. In contrast, Dollar Shave Club thrived by fostering in a culture where diverse inputs were considered part of their daily routine. So decision makers must ensure that they consult a broad range of voices. You and your close peers, maybe you and your boss, or if you're the boss and your closest direct reports, you need to go past that. I promise you, you're going to learn something. You need to prioritize clear communication. In our HR story, the lack of clear communication was evident. A lot of assumptions were made. Information was not adequately disseminated. Dollar Shave Club, however, effectively communicated both internally with its team and externally with its audience. They were transparent, they were consistent, and made sure everybody was on the same page because they included everybody. You got to challenge the status quo. Innovation often comes from questioning the existing norms. Just because we do it this way doesn't mean that's the way we have to continue to do it. Just what got us here won't get us there. And while the HR story depicted a company anchored in traditional practices, Dollar Shave Club challenged the long-standing norms of a very big and old industry. There's always room to innovate, ways to streamline, ways to reimagine processes, but it takes a lot of research and communication. And then let's talk about fostering a culture of critical thinking. The contrast in decision-making between both stories underline the importance of leaders encouraging their teams to think critically, analyze data, consider various perspectives, and foresee potential outcomes before making a decision, the what ifs. Such an environment not only mitigates risk, but it fosters innovation. And if you're a leader that has nothing but one-way conversations telling people what to do and what to think, you are certainly not working on their ability to critically think. So that's it for today. If today's content resonates with you, then you're going to love what we have to offer. For those of you who are ready to take your business or personal career to the next level, we have an array of training and coaching services tailored just for you. From performance coaching designed to enhance your potential, to executive coaching that guides leaders to steer their ships towards greater success. Are you in sales management or looking to fortify your leadership acumen? Dive into our sales management training and coaching. Not only will it sharpen your strategies, but it will also provide you an ROI that's undeniable. Remember, the best investment you can make is in yourself and your team. For those seeking flexible learning options, we're excited to share our online and in-person management leadership classes. These aren't just your typical courses. They are meticulously crafted, ensuring that they align with your unique needs and aspirations. And the best part, prices start at just $47 per month, making top-tier coaching and training accessible for everyone. Your growth, both personally and professionally, can have a ripple effect, the one I call the transformational triangle of change. The skills you learn, the perspectives you gain, and the efficiencies you create can translate into increased revenues, more cohesive teams, and an enriched company culture. So why wait? The potential ROI on this investment isn't just in dollars, it's in the progressive future you're carving out for yourself and your organization. Thanks once again for tuning in. And remember, every business needs a tune-up every now and then. Let the Business Mechanic Show be your guide. Check out our website, rdltraining.com, to discover more details on our programs and coaches. We have a link in the show notes to guide you there. Until next time, we're out of here.